Now, welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on this 10th day of November 2025. Apologies for that prolonged break. But now I want us to reintroduce the panelists here. Instead, I have Gunjeru Wambugu, I have Fred Okango, Robert Mboi, and Senator Hilary Sigei. We had started out on talking about the situation that Kenyans find themselves in the East African region. We had discussed a bit of it with Senator Sigei. But let's listen to the president of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, as he spoke about the intelligence Uganda has and how they got the hold of Nicholas Oyoo and Bob Njagi.
We have very good intelligence, and we know them. Like for instance, we have got two Kenyans whom we arrested. They have been with us. I have their names, but I don't remember their names. They came. They were working with the Chagulanyi's group. That they are experts in riots.
Yeah, experts in riots, he says. But also at the same time, they returned home. I want us to hear what they had to say as they reunited their family, Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyoo.
38 days of abduction was not easy. We didn't think we were going to come out alive. We are traumatized, but we are happy to be home. I'm happy to be here. There are things I might have taken for granted. Today I may not take them for granted. We were being abducted by the military. We have been kept by the military in Uganda for this, under the Special Forces Command. We've not been eating for about 14 days myself. I've been fasting. It's been very difficult. The kind of food we have been given is not really food. We have been dehumanized, if I might say so. And I believe that this is a moment, and all these moments are taking us forward.
The harrowing tales that they lived to tell, but at the same time, there are those that have been speaking about what it took to secure their release. Watch.
There were a lot of complex negotiations that took place. One of them involved the former president of the Republic of Kenya, the fourth president, and that is Uhuru Kenyatta. And it is out of the negotiations and the discussions that took place at the very highest levels of the two governments, plus the former president, that we have had the two, Bob Njagi and Nick Oyoo, return to Kenya in the way that they are.
Pia nishukuru Rais mstaafu kwa kuwa haya bila intervention ya Wakenya wengi hatungeweza.
Right, so they speak about what it took. Of course, you've seen several conversations, including Principal Secretary Korir Sing'oei denying that there was involvement of the former president, saying that success has many fathers. But I think it was also, there was an insinuation from the president of Uganda of a Kenyan leader calling or reaching out. Mheshimiwa Mboi, what do you make of these developments that Kenyans find themselves in, and what is emerging, that indeed the Ugandan military had them all this long, but even proceedings in courts in Kampala could not yield any answers?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. Let me thank Citizens TV for airing this, and also I think also Standard newspaper is doing God's work. I was a bit disappointed when Senator was almost blasting them for the headline that talks about the trinity of terror, basically three heads of state that are hell-bent on making sure that they remain in office at all costs and without care in the world as to what happens to the citizens. It's happened in Kenya. A lot of Kenyans have lost their lives just because somebody wants to be in power. It happened in Tanzania, you saw it. It's happening in Uganda. And basically, it's really unfortunate. So many years after democratic principles were introduced in the world, that individuals who hang on to power at whatever cost is really disturbing. And we need to figure out how to get out of that so that we can be able to move on as a people of the community, the East African community. Some these positions that people fight for, the position of president, can be held by anyone. And I don't know why is it that certain individuals think that they're the only ones who have what it takes to be president. I mean, basically, to be president, you don't have to be more intelligent than everyone else, or you know, to have much more knowledge. Is a privilege that is given by the citizens through the democratic ideals, through the democratic principles, where people go to the ballot, and if you get more votes than others, then you become the president. It is shocking in Tanzania that the president was almost running against herself because all credible, you know, competitors were blocked from being able to vie. So it's really unfortunate, and I think we need to get out of these poor democratic ideals that we are, you know, continuing to practice as a region. And I also want to say that Kenya's government should have moved a lot faster in trying to secure Kenyans that were, you know, these Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyoo, who are in languishing in Ugandan, you know, military prisons. It's unfortunate that, in my opinion, I think the government was very slow. The foreign affairs, you know, minister, that is the Prime CS Musalia, should have moved a lot faster. It's coming out now that it is taking the effort of a former head of state to secure the country, and so I'm wondering what kind of regime is this that is running this country for us. Some on the matter of the court case that was in Uganda, I think the president has just thrown a spanner in the works. He's exposed the judicial system of Uganda, because they threw these cases out, and yet now he has confessed that they had these people, you know, locked up. Now, I don't know what will happen to the head of police who issued a statement saying that they don't have any information about the arrest of those Kenyans. And even the military also did say that they don't have any information. Now, the fact that the president has said that they had them all along. Now, several things need to happen in Uganda. One, those people, those capable people, the head of police, head of military, have to give in, because, I mean, basically, the rule of law has to be respected in every country. If I was a Ugandan, I would tell them, you have to give way. You have to move aside, step aside, because you cannot lie to the citizens. And then also the people that were the judge that was delivering a verdict, knowing very well that obviously these people are languishing in jails in Uganda, should also, you know, take responsibility for their actions. So I would be asking, if I was in Uganda, I would be asking that the judge step aside, the head of military and the head of police, because the president has exposed them by actually confirming that these people are all along in their hands.
Interesting. And Fred, I don't know what you make of this entire process, because just a few days ago I saw a letter of the Prime Cabinet Secretary sort of complaining that despite communication from Nairobi to Kampala, no progress was being made. What is Kenya being taken for by the region when it comes to securing the rights of Kenyans in the entire region?
Thank you, Sam. I think let me start from the headline that you had asked my fellow panelist, the Trinity of Terror. And I think this is alarming. Because you see, at a glance, you look at those leaders in the military fatigue and you would imagine that they are leading terror groups in their own countries. These are presidents who are elected by their citizens in their countries to lead them. But having said that, if you look at Uganda, for example, we know there has been some form of authoritarian longevity in leadership. And the President Kaguta Museveni said recently that, you know, he's now running for the last time. I think he has been saying that for some time, and maybe the people love him. There's also some form of regional militarism, you know, in Uganda, and that's why I think one of the gentlemen who was abducted says that there are things he took for granted. Look at Suluhu recently, the unfortunate events that happened after her election or her election in Tanzania that led to so many people, including some Kenyans, is very unfortunate. Come back to Kenya. We enjoy rights in this country, courtesy of the new constitution, and even if there have been challenges, but our courts have been very magnanimous in terms of protecting some of these rights. And we have seen that, and we have to appreciate. And that's why I think for those Kenyans who, for one or two reasons, find themselves on the wrong side of law in other countries or in the neighboring countries, have a lot of story to tell that might not be the same with Kenya. But I think it is very unfortunate, Sam, that Kenyans were detained in a neighboring country at a time when we are talking about East African community in the terms of cooperation, and the leaders speak. And when you have just said that the Prime Cabinet Secretary is also the Foreign Affairs CS had it difficult, I think how the regional leaders work should be re-examined. Is there a possibility that maybe they are not true to each other? Because if Kaguta Museveni says that he was holding these Kenyans, one of the police chiefs in Uganda the other day said they are not aware of any Kenyan in police detention. You saw the verdict in the court the other day. Yep. It tells you that actually something was happening, and maybe our leadership in the country did not know. And if they knew, then they were trying to do everything possible to secure the release of these gentlemen, and they were hitting, obstacles. So for me, I think the political unpredictability in East Africa is going to affect a lot of things, because Honorable Mbui said that some of these people are determined to hold into power. In Kenya, we know that the president can only serve for 2 terms. So you cannot hold on to power more than 2 terms. In Uganda, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni has been president. He intends to run again, I think, next year. In Tanzania, already Samia Suluhu allegedly won by 98%. So I don't think...
What do you say allegedly?
That's what we are told. And we know that the 2% that was demonstrating is more than 2%. We know that. We also know that Samia Suluhu says she won the election by 98%. That is a coronation. In any election, there's no one who can win an election by over 90%. I mean, Sam, let's be honest. I think that there's a problem. The AU Observer Mission has given their report. They are saying, no, there was a bit of issues in this election. So to finish on this, I say that the leadership of our country should also come out and tell the people of Kenya on the dangers of involving in some of these issues in the neighboring countries, that we don't see civil liberties being protected. The civil liberties in some countries in the neighboring region might not be as protected as in our country. In our country, we enjoy human rights, the rights that protect the human rights. But in other countries, it is military. You try demonstrating, you are abducted, you are detained in the military camps, and you are mistreated, you are dehumanized. It's unfortunate. But I want to say that we thank God that our brothers came back alive, and they have a story to tell, and maybe in future, they'll tell the media what really happened, so that we pick it from there. And the leadership should ensure that such a thing should never happen to any Kenyan again.
Okay. The president of Uganda says that, of course, with our very good intelligence system, we picked them up and they have been in the fridge for some days. Some Kenyan leaders rang me and said I should either put them in jail here or hand them back. There is a president of
Uganda.
A member of the East African community. He leads a state that is a member of the East African community. Mheshimiwa Wambugo, what does this say about our place in the East African community? Because when you listen to everyone here, it's like the rest of the East African community believes in ideals we don't, or we believe in ideals they don't. What's our place?
Thank you, Sam. First, there's a saying that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts, absolutely. Listening to Museveni, you get the feeling of a guy who is completely, absolutely corrupted by power. Part of it, there's always this clip of Museveni in, I think, 35 or something years ago, insisting the way he's not going to cling to power. Immediately he got into power, And every time I see that clip, and then I see him now, and you're like, it doesn't matter. One of the best things that we did with our constitution as Kenyans is to give ourselves a term limit. I think even the best person, if you stay in power as long as Museveni has, you start getting the impression that the country belongs to you, the things that happen to that. I mean, the country runs on your whims. When you listen to him, my colleague panelists have commented about how he's thrown institutions in his country under the bus. I mean, he really doesn't care. You know, the judiciary said, we don't have these guys. My police officer said, these guys are not here. That is the problem. Me, I had them. I had told them to say these things. Now I've changed my mind. I'm saying I had them. They were in a fridge. I was asked whether I want to stay with them or to give them back, and I decided to give them back. I could have. You get the impression of complete hubris. This is a guy who believes that the rule of law doesn't apply to him. But then I also want to pick up on something Bob Njagi said when they came out. He said he has learned not to take some things for granted. I think it was Bob or Oyoo. He said, now moving forward, there are some things I'll not take for granted. You know, and I think that is a lesson also for us. I know Standard is saying Trinity of Terror. And yes, every one of our countries has had excesses of violation of human rights. But let's be very honest. In Kenya, you're not going to see military trucks driving around telling people to go to take themselves to the police or come and get arrested. You also don't get that kind of hubris in our leadership. You know, Museveni is saying, there's nothing you guys can do to me. This is what I am going to do, and there's nothing you can do to me. So in Uganda, it's a hubris of an individual. In TZ, it's a hubris of an institution, the CCM. They've decided we don't care. How, you know, even when you're rigging elections, man, you can't rig elections with 98%. I mean, at least when Museveni tries, you know, he gets 60. How do you get 98%? Which country that you're saying you're having democracy? That is a complete joke. And the fact that they didn't even see the need to pretend, you know, and just play around with those figures. Because by the time you play around with 98%, you can make it 60. And then give 10 here, give 20 there. You know, you have the power to do that. That they didn't see the need to do that tells you also the amount of arrogance and power that they believe they have. But for me, I see also the fact that we have in this conversation is a cracks. They are not going to be able to pull this off for too long. I don't think CCM is going to be able to do this in the next election. Museveni, whether he wins the next election or not, he's also now starting to have to explain himself. You know, he couldn't have done this a couple of years back. He has to explain, you know. But then my final word on this one is, you know, even Americans don't go to demonstrate in North Korea. You can't. I mean, there's nothing America is going to do. When you get into North Korea and those guys get you, you're in trouble. There's also a certain, we have to accept that our...
What do you mean by that?
Today, if you walk into North Korea, actually not even North Korea, Uganda, you can't have this conversation on television. Right?
Yeah.
Just this, what we're talking about right now. You'd get shut down, this place would get clamped up, and we'd all be carted off to jail. But America, which is actually, as Trump insists these days, is the most powerful country in the world, they still are not able to protect their people from some demagogues.
And that's why my question. We pride ourselves that we are members, perhaps leaders economically, of this African community.
We can be leaders. We can be leaders economically, but a lot of the times it's not about your economic might. It's about your security and military might. When you see some countries, for example, you can tell there's a certain element of contempt that Uganda has on us. Yes, so we are economically beyond them. But when he says, you know, our intelligence, you know, when Museveni says our intelligence is very good, he's telling us yours is terrible. You know? And there's a statement he made a couple of years ago about our army not being as good as theirs. So we are now, when you get to the point where we are competing on strength, Uganda believes they have the capacity to bully us. And they've done it, Migingo, in other places. And there's nothing we do. So when our citizens go to their country to agitate for rights in their country under their laws, they will get mistreated, and there's nothing we can do about it because we don't have the leverage to force them to give our people back. We have to plead. I saw the letter, the notable that Museveni did. It was pleading. Man, it's been a month. You guys haven't told us anything. What's going on? I'm like, boss, you can feel we are not at the same level in terms. We can't. If this was an American who had been taken by Uganda, they would have given them back in a couple of days. Because there's so many things America can do to you, from sanctions to invasions to everything. We don't have that capacity. And I think as Kenyans also, we are very proud of our capacity and our democratic space, but let's realize that we don't have, our state doesn't have the capacity to protect us in other countries. We can do it here, but when we go to other countries, whether they want to, maybe they don't even want to protect us in other countries, but even if they wanted to, I don't think they have the capacity to do it.
Now, leaders have been speaking. Let's listen to the senator of Nandi speaking.
I want to ask President Museveni and President Samia Suluhu Hassan, if you get any busybodies activists who want to destabilize the sovereignty and the peace and tranquility of your country, finya hawa, warudishe nyumbani, tuwamalizie.
There is a senator of the Republic of Kenya. He's your colleague in the Senate, Senator Sigei. He's also a neighbor. So is this the thinking of your side of government, or what is this?
The beauty of the democracy that we are enjoying and celebrating as Kenyans is what gives the opportunity and the comfort to certain utterances from our colleagues. Listening to Honorable Cherargei, I picked three things. Those who are seeking, actually four, those who are seeking to destabilize your country, finya hawa, turudishe nyumbani, tuwamalizie. That can never be the position of the government. It is an opinion by an individual who is entitled to make such statements. I would say, in the context of our two brothers who have just been brought back from Uganda, and I'm happy that they are safe. We've listened to them. It is not warranted that we should also say such statements, especially when we are still struggling with the accusations that are crossing over as to the weaknesses of our foreign policy, whether the government is complicit in its duty to protect Kenyans, whether within or outside the country, which I say, as a matter of fact, whatever happened to Kenyans, whether in Uganda or Tanzania or any other foreign country, the responsibility of this country to protect them. And I don't agree then with Senator Cherargei that we should, utter such statements. But I also want to challenge us as Kenyans to be alive to the fact that, notwithstanding the responsibility and the obligation of the government of the day to protect us, our specific personal status when we are in foreign country matters a lot. If, for instance, I am in Tanzania officially observing the elections, I will be at a more safer point than someone who just crossed over in a bid to demonstrate and do not have official status, for example.
What did Bob and Nicholas do to warrant what has befallen them?
One, we've heard what Museveni says. That is his position. We heard what his chiefs and what the police said, that they were not there. The courts also threw out a case. Here we're saying these are Kenyans who, one, and that is why I said we should be wary of our official or kind of status that we are in.
Yep.
If I'm in a foreign country, for instance, within the East Africa community, I don't need a visa to be in Uganda, for instance. But then, right, I am entitled to be there to do certain official engagements. And for purposes of the two brothers who were there, none of us is happy with what they went through. I'm not happy as an individual. It cannot be that I can sit back and say they ought to have been finward, or they ought to have been, detained for 30 days.
You are making a point about the circumstances that you take yourself into another country.
Yes.
So what were they doing themselves, if you know?
I don't know. I wouldn't want to comment on something that I don't know. But what I'm saying is they are Kenyans. And therefore, it is the obligation of the government to protect them. But I am giving a qualification that in such a foreign land, your status matters a lot. It matters a lot because that will be the point where the government can now formally engage. If it's about doing negotiations for whatever it's worth, that is what will matter when we know you are officially in that country as an observer, as you are working, you are a businessman, and your records are available for us to be able to track.
When Kenyans report to those countries, they must register with the, what I say?
No. What normally happens when I cross over to Tanzania, if I'm carrying my passport, it's got to be stamped.
Yeah.
That is the official entry point. As to what I do out there also matters a lot, to the extent that if anything happens, there is some paper trail. I can be tracked. Where was I? At what point? What was I doing?
So where
Who was I with?
that followed?
And
in
all
the case
that.
of, because they were at a campaign meeting for Bobi Wine, who is an opponent of Museveni.
I believe it was followed, and that is why we had the correspondence that came. As to whether it came in at the right time, whether it had the right tone, at least I am aware that the government was following on its citizens.
Is it a crime to appear at a campaign rally in a foreign land?
Not in Kenya. I don't know, in a foreign land.
No, I'm asking you.
I don't know.
Because the Interior Cabinet Secretary, Kipchumba Murkomen, was at a campaign meeting in Uganda.
Yeah.
He came back, quite safe.
That's why I'm saying, Sam, I do not know whether that would be the justification for detention. We all speculate from what we're getting from the media.
Speculate.
More importantly,
Yeah.
it is the obligation of every government of the day to protect its citizens within and without. And I wouldn't agree with Senator Cherargei's statements that we can just make such statements over our Kenyans who are either detained or in foreign land.
I want us to transition, but Honorable Mbowe, your thoughts about the statement by Senator Cherargei?
Well, I think that is loose talk. There's been a lot of loose talk by leaders, and it has to be condemned. I mean, it's very unfortunate for a leader saying that. I want to advise him that sometimes you should have empathy. These are people who are families, and families who are, basically crying over their lost and abducted relatives. So when they come back and you go and issue a statement like that, and look at what he actually says. He says that, finya hao. I mean, basically torture them. Then he says, bring them back, we finish them off. That kind of talk from leaders that are elected by Kenyans is really unfortunate. But just, let me just say something that Senator here did not want to say. Actually, the two gentlemen went to participate in the campaigns for Bobi Wine. That's basically why they were there. They are supporters of Bobi Wine. They've indicated that. We've seen them in their tweets. So they were there to support a candidate they felt would probably do better for the people of Uganda. So, and I think it's within their rights. Even Kenyan politicians, sometimes at that high level, sometimes even higher, experts to come and deal with their PR and all that. So there's nothing illegal about that. So they're going there was just basically to participate and assist a candidate. And I think Yoweri Museveni was very annoyed. That's why he says that there were experts in chaos. I mean, that's what he said. But let me say some that, it's very good to debate with Senator Sigei here, because you know what he stands for, you know what his position is. I'm having a bit of difficulty with my colleagues here because I was listening to them today and I was not too sure where they are standing from. When you see when Wambugu Ngujiri says that in Kenya you will not see military tankers in the streets. I mean, and I'm wondering where he was in June 20. You said that in Kenya you are unlikely to see military tanks in the streets. I don't know where he was in June 2024, just last year. And you can have such a short memory that the military with full regalia and armed were in the streets of Nairobi to deal with the revolution by the young people. And then he says the leaders out there have hubris. And I'm wondering, where doesn't he watch TV? There's never been anyone in State House that has more arrogance than the current holder of that office. So I'm wondering, when you're talking about Uganda, Tanzania, you're forgetting some of the problems are happening in Kenya. Just soon after Raila Amolo Odinga died, William Samoei Ruto went to public and said, you know what, now without Baba, the people that are here, elections in 2027 will be the easiest. I'll deal with them very fast thing in the morning. I mean, the loose talk is there. And that is what we call arrogance. So if you're talking about arrogance, our leaders in the community are arrogant, and I think it's an unfortunate thing. I just want to advise leaders, all the way from the president to senators to governors to members of parliament, all of us, we just have to be very careful what we say, because we don't want we don't want to seem to be showing that it's like we are better than everyone else. I think it's important that we have empathy, we have fairness, we be careful about the things that we say. Okay.
Do I owe you right of reply?
Yes, you do. And actually, I won't take long. First and foremost, I think Mheshimiwa Mbowe missed the second part of my conversation, of my statement on that issue. I said in Kenya, you don't see military trucks making announcements for people to go and turn themselves in the police. That was my point. My point wasn't not seeing military trucks. Number two, if Senator Mbowe, if Mheshimiwa Mbowe remembers, the trucks that came out were actually embraced by Gen Z. The army trucks that came out. Gen Z were happier to see the army trucks on the streets because they felt protected by military than they were even by the police. So there's a difference in that. But then also, if you're talking about arrogance, I suspect that in Kenya, neither the opposition or government can throw a bone, can point a finger at the other person. When you listen to some of the opposition leaders speaking, the amount of arrogance and hubris that they actually emit is nearly as bad as what he's claiming comes from State House. So we on that one, I don't think anybody has a right to...
Nearly as bad.
Yes, it's nearly as bad, you know, and you see, so if we are talking, and the question we were discussing was about Uganda. Had we come to Kenya, I would have had my own things to say about some of the leaders we have, both in opposition and in government, and how they speak. And for example, what Njagi said was actually, in my opinion, was just stupid. And I'm sorry to use that kind of word on air, but you, as a leader, you can't say that. There's a certain element of responsibility over your words and how you're communicating that you need to be careful. And sometimes I feel that people like Njagi are the ones who make the government that they serve get the kind of flack that they get, because he didn't have to say that. I mean, I don't know what he hoped he was going to achieve by saying that. It doesn't earn him votes in his county. What really was he talking about? Why did he have to say that? That was irresponsible and quite unfortunate.
Okay, all right. Now to the